Hi, this is Dr. Jo Marie Rios, professor of political science, retired from Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi. And so our talk now, or this current talk, is going to be policy issue areas. And so what we're going to be talking about is policies and basically the laws, or what goes into the laws, or how they're going to be designed in order for it to become a law. So let's talk about those. And we're going to be talking about the ones that are going to be what we call salient issues, the ones that are important issues right now. So let me see, let me share screen, and then we will do this one here and share. Okay, when it comes to public policy, there you go. When it comes to public policy, I have defined a policy or public policy being a mechanism to fix social problems, or anytime that there is a problem and there needs to be government intervention, or there needs to be some type of law that needs to fix a problem. It's called a policy issue area, and policies are made based on different substantive policy issue areas in legislatures, whether it be Congress at the national level or the state legislatures. So they tend to be kind of complex areas. I mean, any policy area that you want to look at, there's lots of moving parts to it. I mean, lots of moving parts to it. And so most of the time when we actually pass laws, they're not the best laws that you could pass. They're not always great solutions, but they're the best that we can do, given the money that we have, given whatever political will or politicians are currently in the legislature at that time. So it depends on many factors of how a law is going to be coming out and how a law is going to look and what we can actually do. And that's called political will. Okay, when it comes to making laws, many times, but not always, they will look at the different polls that are taken around the country and around the state, because the state also does their own polling, like the Scripps does their own polling, Texas Tribune does their own polling, University of Texas does their own polling, University of Texas Tyler does their own polling. So these are more about issues that are going on in the state of Texas. And so it's trying to take the pulse of the state or the nation, because there's also national polling. And so most of the times when they're, or many times I should say, when they're going to be making policies, they will be looking at this polling to find out, do the politicians have the support of the constituents? But that's not always the case. And I would say that has not been the case in probably, I would say, maybe 10 years. All right. This comes from the University of Texas. It's Texas Politics, and it's the UT Political Science Department, or the one in Austin. And so they conducted this poll in August, I believe it was. And so they looked at different issues, and these are the ones that are really, as I said, more important issues, are the ones that the different parties are looking at right now, saying, well, you know, we feel a certain way, but the politicians don't agree with us. You know, it's kind of like, what are we going to do about this? So let's talk about immigration. Is going to be a big one right now, and that's being pushed by the Republican Party. So we're going to look at the way immigration looks on both sides of the aisle. And then the spending on border security. Then I'm not going to talk about crime, but look at the gun control. You know, ever since the Uvalde shootings last May, when all those kids got shot, 54% of the people polled think that there needs to be stricter gun control. And they were really talking not so much about handguns, but they were talking about like the semi-automatic weapons, the ATFs, that type of thing. So that was like a big one. Now, when it comes to Texas, look at the overturning of Roe versus Wade. This is like the post-Dobbs decision. It's split. I mean, completely split. There's no majority on either part. 44% approve, 44% disapprove. And then 49% or a plurality of Texans thinks that the laws need to be less strict. The other one I wanted to point out was when it comes to the Texas economy, the plurality, not quite the majority, about 42% think that that they are worse off now than they were a year ago. And everybody knows that that deals with the inflation, like talking about the inflation. And so when they're asking about the direction of the state, the majority, 52%, say or think that the state is going in the wrong direction. So the state has a lot of work to do, right? Is it going to get done? I don't know. Okay, so we're going to be talking a little bit about the economy and inflation, although that's more of a national issue, so I'll leave that one for the last. But we are going to be talking about immigration, and we're going to be talking about abortion laws or reproductive rights. And then we're going to talk about democracy, which is not particularly an issue area, but it deals a lot more with the laws that are passed about voting and how you're able to vote. So we'll talk about both sides of that issue as well. Now, when it comes to making policy at the state level, it kind of comes down to the party's ideologies. And so what happens is that every 4 years, each party meets for their state convention, and they will craft different positions that they want their party to advance. And this they call the party platform. And then they will approve the party platform. And this is what's used by the elected politicians to craft legislation, to craft policies based on these party platforms. Now, I'm giving you the links or the websites to the different party platforms. I'm not going to go into them specifically because they're kind of long. They're like, 40, 50 pages long. If you want to, you can go in there and look at them. You can kind of, it gives you like a listing or like a table of contents, if you want to call it that, of where you can go to look for a certain area that you want to. But it covers every single issue area. It covers crime. It covers education. It covers voting and elections. It covers environment. Anything that you're thinking about, it's there if you want to look at it. So that's the Democratic Party platform. That's the Republican Party platform. So I just clicked on that link and you can kind of like explore if that's what you want to do. I'm going to kind of put it more in broader categories and the things that appear to be more important when it comes to this platform and the upcoming elections. Okay, so this is kind of how it works, or how policy is made, I guess you could say. Laws are going to be introduced, but they need to be crafted in some way. And so they're going to be looking at the party platform and the party ideologies, and this is where they're spelled out. And so depending on who the majority party is in the state legislature, they're the ones that are going to control the agenda. They're the ones that are going to say, these are the laws that we're going to push through or try to push through. Now, again, depending if it's the majority party, and the majority party here in Texas has been the Republican Party since 2002. The Republican Party has controlled the state of Texas and the laws coming out of the state of Texas since 2002. So they will design them. So if you're asking yourself, why is our state so conservative? Well, this is why. Because Texas has been a very red state. It's been a very red state since 2002. Now, I showed you a graphic in the last section, if you want to look at that one again, saying, yes, Texas is conservative, but it's not. It's on the verge of becoming a purple state. And a purple state is just saying it's a swing state. So depending on how the elections go with this midterm cycle, we'll see how that pans out, if that comes out to be true or not. I don't know. First, what I talk about is immigration. That's the big one for the Republican Party. So let's talk more about how the different party platforms look at this particular policy issue area. So for the Democratic Party, they're more comprehensive in their reform, or that's kind of what they say, is they want to be more comprehensive in their immigration reform. Although they've been saying that for a long time, it hasn't come to pass. Democratic Party says that the DACA or the Dreamers should have a path to citizenship. Again, they've been saying that for a long time, and that has not come to pass. Now, when it comes to busing, they're saying we think the busing should stop. And this is the busing that they're sending these immigrants to all of these other states to get them out of the state of Texas. And so they're saying, no, well, that's not what we should do, because we are using taxpayers' money to do that. But people seem to be okay with it. So I'm not saying this is good or this is bad. I'm saying that, that's what they're using to bus all of these people, all of these immigrants that are coming in. They're busing them to New York. They're busing them to Washington, D.C. They're busing them to Washington, to California, any place else. But there's a reason for that. All right. So is there an upside to having immigrants here in this state? And the answer is basically yes, and it's an economic reason. And that economic reason is because it benefits the labor market. And so, we have a lot of jobs in the state of Texas, but we don't have enough people to take those jobs. And so these are basically the jobs that people are not wanting. I was in San Antonio recently, And so the hotel where I was staying at, it said, we do not have enough staff. Please be kind to our maintenance staff. We can only service your room every 3 days. If you want more service, then there will be an extra charge. So I mean, so it's kind of like everywhere. But anyway, so it would benefit the labor market in that way. The social impacts of it is that it would increase diversity. Whether you think it's a good thing or you think it's a bad thing, it would increase diversity. Now, when it comes to the political part of it, of the people that vote in the Democratic Party or tend to have a Democratic leaning ideology, say 50% of the majority oppose busing. They're saying no, and so as I said, they're likely the Democratic voters, and they're saying no, you should not bus these people. A lot of times I will listen to the Spanish station news. And so of the people that are being buzzed, some of them don't want to be buzzed, but a lot of them, they do want to be buzzed because they didn't want to stay in Texas. So they kind of thank the state of Texas for busing them. That's neither here nor there. I'm not sure that's ever come out. Okay, what about the Republican Party? Well, the Republican Party says no immigration at all, none, whether it's documented or undocumented, none. And so let's bust out as many people as we can and let's build that border wall. Well, all right, so that's been going on for a while. There's a lot of the DPS are down there, the National Guard are down there. Don't let them in, don't let them in. Okay, that's the way it is. Okay, so the economic impact is that it is causing that labor shortage that I was talking about because there's not enough people to take the jobs. Americans don't want those jobs. I don't know what else to say. I mean, those jobs are not being filled by people, period. The social impact of it is, guess what? Why do you think they're doing this? And so right now, what is going on is that there's and it's called the replacement theory, or the Republicans are calling it the replacement theory. They're trying to keep Texas as white as they possibly can, because surely you know that Texas, the demographics of Texas is changing, and the Hispanic population, the Latino population has become the majority minority, and it's getting ready to overpass the Anglo population. And so they're trying to stop that. And they're saying we don't want immigrants over here. We do not want immigrants in the state of Texas. So it's basically xenophobia. And so politically, what is it? 62% of Republicans say, let's bust out these immigrants. Let's bust out these immigrants. All right, moving on to reproductive rights. This is the abortion debate. So the abortion debate, or the reproductive rights debate, I'm broadening that some because there's different ways that you can look at it. There's different aspects to that one. And so the argument is pro-life, pro-choice. It's not pro-life, pro-abortion. So the Republican Party tends to frame it within that argumentation, pro-life, pro-abortion. That's not what pro-choice means. The pro-choice means that you have a choice. You may want to get that abortion or you may not. That's your choice. All right. So for the Democratic Party, they're saying, no, we have to ensure that we have everything set up so that women can have the right to choose what happens to their own body, have the means to have a say over what happens to their own body. Now, they're also saying that women in the state of Texas need to have availability for contraception. I mean, buying the pill or whatever, right? Whatever contraceptive method you want to use, because the Republicans don't want that. They're saying we need to repeal the Heartbeat Act. The Democrats are saying this. And the Heartbeat Act was that initial one that was enacted the last legislative session that says you cannot have an abortion after 6 weeks as long as the heartbeat is detected. And then there was a more stringent one that was passed after the Dobbs decision, where now no abortion is legal in the state of Texas. So the social impacts of this is that it's the health care that's affected for both the prenatal care, because because of the abortion, all of the abortion laws that have been passed in the state of Texas, there were almost no abortion clinics. But it wasn't only that; they closed a lot of these clinics that would provide a health care, prenatal care, OBGYN care to low-income women. So these are the ones that are hurting because we don't have any of those clinics anymore. Now, with the close of the passing of this last abortion bill, there are no clinics anymore. So where do these women go? And if you are pregnant, well, then what's going to happen to your baby if you don't have anywhere to take them? And healthcare access in Texas is not good right now. It's not good. Okay, for me, this is the biggie. When it comes to what happened with the pro-Dobbs decision, this overturning of the Roe versus Wade, What that did is that it stripped women's constitutional rights. We became second-class citizens in the state of Texas. We became property of the state of Texas. Okay, and I will tell you that as I talk about the Republican Party, why I'm saying that. Okay, so pro-life, no abortion ever under no circumstances, none. And in order to ensure that there are no restrictions or no abortions, what they have done, and these laws are already on the books, guys. There's many restrictions. There's a vigilante clause in that the Heartbeat Act. And what that says is that if there is if you know somebody that's getting an abortion, you can sue the person helping that person. Say it's an Uber driver. An Uber driver takes this person to get an abortion. Well, you can sue that Uber driver because they took that person to get an abortion. So it's like they call it the vigilante clause. It's a civil suit. It's like $10,000. More worrisome though is that with the latest heartbeat or the latest abortion bill, what they did is that they're saying you can only have an abortion if the life of the mother is in danger. They're in danger of dying. And it's not up to the doctor to decide. You can be charged, doctor, with felony charges. You can go to jail, doctor, if we, the politicians, determine that woman's life was not at risk of, she was not at risk of dying. I'm sitting there like, well, how would they know? I mean, they're not trained doctors, right? But anyway, that's the way it is. So the healthcare by these MDs is being threatened. The ABGYNs are very fearful of what to do with these women that really are in a bad situation, because of a pregnancy. Like, for example, if you have an ectopic pregnancy, I think that's how you say it, which is basically the egg fertilizes in the tube, not in the fetus. Well, then what do you do? I mean, the woman could die because of that, and they've been denied that type of care. Interesting, right? All right. But what that's going to lead to a lot of these backstreet abortions. And so what's happening right now is that different organizations, different NGOs, like the nonprofits, I should say, from other countries, like from Mexico, the ones from Mexico are helping a lot of the women in the state of Texas by providing some of these Plan B contraceptions if that's what they're needed. But the way that it reads right now, a woman cannot receive anything in the mail. So, I'm just telling you, it's happening kind of backstreet again. Okay, but this is the big one right here. Right now, the Texas legislature, or the chatter that I've heard, is that they are considering making women, I guess, of childbearing years, get the permission of the state if they're going to cross state lines, because they are afraid that the woman might go get an abortion elsewhere. Again, this is stripping away our rights as women to have choices that we make, and that we're being watched. We're being watched. We need the permission. May I have permission to go to the bathroom, please? What are we, children? Moving on. Okay, and when it comes to democracy, this is not really like a policy issue area, but it is mentioned in the Democratic Party platform, and it talks a lot about what they wonder, how democracy should be saved, because as I said before, democracy is in peril right now. And so basically, when it comes to democracy, is let's remove any kind of barriers that we have to voting. I mean, so the way that the voting bills are in the state of Texas, what they're doing is that they're putting more and more barriers, and this is under the Republican Party. I'll talk about that in a second. But they're saying, no, women, there are voting rights. You have a right. If you are eligible to be able to vote, you should be able to vote without having any kind of, person watching you, and they are watching right now, without having any kind of see, how can I say this? I guess suppression, and that's the best way that I can say it, that they're trying to suppress the votes. So we should be able to participate in all of the elections. Everybody should be able to participate in all of the elections. The Democrats are saying, you know what, it's costing way too much money. There's too much money in these elections that are driving the elections, that are driving who's getting elected. They're driving how these laws are going to be passed. And it's always been that way to a great extent in the state of Texas, but even more so now. Do you know that in this governor's race that we're having right now, they have spent $1 billion? $1 billion, that's a lot of money. And so more than anything else that they're saying, you know what, we need to promote transparency. We need to have accountability in government. not just the politicians, but also the state agencies, because everything is very, very unclear. Again, think about the Uvalde shooting and the role of DPS. We still don't know what happened, and that what's almost an hour and a half that they were there. We don't know. We don't know. So anyway, so the way that they have it set out with free and frequent elections, because that's what democracy is, our ability to have free and frequent elections and not have anybody coerce us or threaten our voting rights in any way. And that advances a democracy, as opposed to on the other side of the aisle is the Republican Party. And so they're instituting even more barriers to voting. There's nothing in their platform that addresses democracy. Everything that they talk about when it comes to voting election is trying to decrease the availability of people being able to vote, putting in more barriers, more restrictions to being able to vote, decreasing the voting sites. Okay, well, let me give an example of this one. At Texas A&M University College Station, they had a voting site there, an early voting site there. And so that county, which is a very red county, took it away and they wouldn't give it back to them. And so they petitioned because they're saying, well, a lot of college students want to vote on campus. We live on campus, we're on campus taking classes, and they would not do it. So another group, and it's called Mothers Against Greg Abbott. They just did a carpool saying, we're going to be going to a voting site. If you want to go vote, we'll take you. So they were mobilizing the vote that way. I thought that was kind of funny. I mean, that's a good thing, right? All right. So when it comes to this side, this is the part that concerns me the most when it comes to the Republican Party. And that's not just in the state of Texas. That's in a lot of the more red states, or the very red states, I should say. They are advancing legislation so that the Secretary of State and or the legislature can change the results of the elections if they do not agree with the results of that election. That's another way of saying is that your vote will no longer count. That's not a good thing, because you know what that leads to? That leads to autocracy. That's how countries lose their democracy, if they're saying, we don't care what you, the voters, say. We no longer have a representative democracy. It's only what we want. It's an autocracy, like a dictatorship. That is very worrisome. And then finally, when it comes to the economy and inflation, there's really a couple of ways that you can look at it, and they're related. I mean, they're very related. But the economy itself is not doing badly. I know everybody's suffering from inflation. We all are. We see those prices out there. We see the gas prices out there. We see how much it costs to go to the store. Yes. Okay, but the economy itself, there's jobs. There's jobs to be had. There's not enough people to take the jobs. Our GDP growth, our GDP rate, it's gross net domestic product rate. This is how they track recessions. It was down. Well, this last quarter, it was up. So they're saying, okay, we're not going into recession. We're still suffering, but we're not going into recession. That's a good thing. All right. When it comes to the tools that the economists use, you can kind of look at it in two ways. One is called monetary policy. Oh, I have 2 degrees in economics, guys. Monetary policy and fiscal policy. Now, the monetary policy is the one that deals with the inflation, and that's the Federal Reserve Bank. And that's not part of the White House. It's not part of the government. It's not part of the legislature, not part of the executive office. It's an independent agency that has independent judgment to do whatever they think they need for the economy to be stable. And so the monetary is the one where they raise the interest rates if there's inflationary pressures, if there's inflation going on. So that's monetary policy. Now, the other kind of policy is fiscal policy, and that's one where government does have a say. That these are the type of programs that can provide support to different people. If the economy is not doing well, if the country is not doing well. An example of that would be the stimulus checks that a lot of people got during the pandemic when the country closed down. People were out of jobs. People had no money. So this was a way for the government to help people out. So that's called fiscal policy. Okay, now all of these did contribute to inflation in this way. There is a global impact. We are not the only nation, because this is more national. It's not just Texas. This is more national. And now it's international. It's global. We're not the only country experiencing inflation. There's many, many countries out there. We're not doing as badly as some. We're doing worse than others. And it is pandemic related, believe it or not, because the country shut down. We were not producing. We were getting money, the stimulus money, and some people were working. Fortunately, I was still able to work during that time. So, I mean, I did not suffer and I did not get stimulus money, but that's okay too, right? I'm glad that the people that needed the money were able to get some help. But you know what? There was like a cash reserve. You were building up your cash inflow, and there was nothing to buy. So whenever the economy started doing better and people were going out and there started to be more products, what happened is that people were buying, and people were buying. It's called consumer consumption. People were buying. And so what happened is because there was a shortage, because they were not producing the pandemic. So it was like too many dollars for chasing too few goods. So the prices kept going up. And that's just the law of supply and demand. The more demand there is, and if the supply is low, then the prices are going to go up. So that's inflationary. So it's consumer consumption that has spurred this inflation. And that's why the Federal Reserve, with its monetary policy tool, has increased the interest rates to say, don't buy so much. I'm going to make it really expensive for you to buy things. So that way we can bring that inflation down and bring the prices down. Okay, so that's kind of how it works in general. I mean, I teach whole courses on this stuff, but basically that's how it works. Okay, I hope I've given you like at least a snapshot look that you can use for this election, other elections, how the government works. As I said, I teach whole courses in this, so it's kind of hard to say in like 20 minutes that I've been talking, or I try to keep it to 20 minutes. It's a lot of information I'm giving you, and I realize that. So, but I hope that this is going to serve you some way. Thank you, Dan.